It's 10:01, so I think we can start this session. So welcome everyone to this webinar on opportunities in one of the most digitized countries in the world. So hopefully today we will learn a bit more about the Swedish healthcare system and opportunities that exist there for digital speakers or for digital health companies. With us today to present more about this, we have some very knowledgeable speakers. First out is Patrik Sundström, who's Chief Digital Officer at the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions, and he will speak on the Swedish healthcare system and introduce you to that. Second out is Iris Örn, who's Investment Advisor for Life Sciences and Healthcare at Business Region Göteborg. And she will speak about investment opportunities and investment support available for companies looking to set up in Sweden. We did have a third speaker, Peter Kjell, who was going to speak about test beds in Sweden. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, he will not be able to join today. We will, however, share his slides with all of you. The way this will be set up is we will have Patrik who will speak first. Following that, we will have a Q&A with him. So please feel free to write all your questions in the chat and we'll monitor that. And after that, Iris will take over and same thing followed by a Q&A afterwards. Also, please note that this webinar is being recorded, so we will also share it if, for instance, you feel that there are people that for some reason couldn't attend that you want to share this with. Final comments on this. So this is a webinar organized by Business Sweden and DIT. So briefly before I hand over to the people from DIT, just a bit about Business Sweden. So we're the Swedish Trade and Invest Council. We support Swedish companies that want to expand abroad, but also companies that are interested in investing in Sweden. So that's part of our governmental assignment. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out. And with that, I'll hand over to Alex from DIT.
Hi, thanks. Morning all, and thanks, Johan, for the introduction. So yeah, just to cover a little bit about DIT, so that's the Department for International Trade. I'm based here in London, supporting companies from the UK side. Hopefully, many of the colleagues who've joined on the line, you received my email kind of advertising this event, and you're aware of the support that we're giving UK digital health companies in expanding internationally. I work really closely with both external organisations like Business Sweden, like with colleagues like Johan, but also across DIT with colleagues such as Jennifer, who's based in our embassy. So I don't know if Jennifer, if you want to maybe just introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good to see so many people on the call. As Alex and Johan said, I work for DIT. I'm based at the British Embassy here in Stockholm. I'm Senior Trade Advisor leading on the life science sector here. And I think both Alex and me are working from DIT, based in London. I'm based in Stockholm. And what we do here from our side at the embassy is that we do a lot of personalized kind of advisory for companies looking to establish in Sweden or looking at our interest in the Swedish market. So that involves everything from creating events to market information, getting connections and contacts, etc. I think we have a lot of experience working in this field, but keeping in mind that in the end we are here to support you. So I think we're quite flexible and try to be innovative in what you need when you're looking to establish here in Sweden. I'll hand back to Johan because I think perhaps people are ready to kick off with the star speakers for today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I won't be long. I'll hand over immediately back to Patrik Sundström from SKR. So Patrik, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Johan and Alex, for introducing this seminar. I'm trying to get my slides on. Someone please just confirm that you'll see it now.
We can see them.
Yeah, great. First of all, it's a pleasure to join you today, so thanks for having me. As mentioned, I'm working at national level in Sweden as Chief Digital Officer at the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. It's quite a mouthful. And just to explain that briefly, we are a member organization for all the regions and municipalities. And that means in a Swedish context that we represent all the organizations actually responsible for financing, planning, delivering and improving healthcare. In that sense, you could say that we are somewhat equivalent to the NHS, but unlike the UK, the Swedish national central government has limited responsibilities and mandate when it comes to healthcare. That mandate lies with the regions and municipalities and with their goodwill also in my organization. Anyway, I'm going to try to give you a very brief overview of some of my key reflections and on digital health in Sweden, what our goals are and how our challenges look like. And first of all, I would like to argue that every healthcare system around the world now stands at this intersection where the question really is to either kiss the future or the past goodbye. The challenges facing healthcare and society in general are combined with the fact that citizens expect a modern and digital accessible care, putting a lot of pressure on healthcare systems to transform. And even if no one knows exactly what the future will look like, we all do know that it is not an option to continue the way we do today. And now with the pandemic, we are all experiencing the most rapid change of healthcare in history. And exactly like before, when we have been taking big steps towards something new and something better, technology is the enabler for that. So with that as a short introduction, I would like to give you just some basics about the Swedish healthcare system. Healthcare in Sweden is tax financed and it's decentralized. As I mentioned, our central government has limited mandate when it comes to healthcare. The primary task for the central government lies within laws and regulations and some minor funding. But all regions and municipalities levy their own taxes. And we have 21 regions that are responsible for financing, planning, delivering, improving healthcare. And that, of course, includes the transformation enabled by technology as well. We have 290 municipalities that is responsible for care for elderly in homes or in special housing. The municipalities are also responsible for social care. Healthcare in Sweden covers all residents. I would also like to point out that we have unlimited freedom of choice for citizens in primary care. That means that as a citizen in Sweden, you can choose your primary care provider anywhere in the country. It's not limited to the region that I actually live in, but my home region stands the costs of my care if I choose to get it in another region. When we were more or less analog, this was not a big issue. Only a few citizens choose to travel to another region to get their primary care done outside their own region. But as virtual care were introduced, we now have several digital care providers that provide virtual care all over the country. Exactly from one access point, they could cover all the nation, of course. And I would also like to point out that we, of course, have a lot of private healthcare providers within our publicly financed system. As long as a private provider can meet the requirements set by a region, that provider qualifies to be reimbursed in our tax financed system. So it's kind of a freedom to establish as long as you meet the requirements. It could also be good for you guys to point out that in Sweden, primary care is about primary care centers with doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, psychiatrists, and more staff. It's not about single GPs. We don't actually have that. But returning to where we started, our healthcare system now faces bigger challenges than ever before, and we aren't at all at a position where we could just lean back, relax, and be confident that we will come out in a good way. And here on this slide, you see why we need to reinvent the future of healthcare. I'm not going to get deep into these 5 challenges, since this is what almost all countries around the world are facing. But I would like to stress the fact that these challenges can only be met by smarter ways of working. We need a smart healthcare that is more efficient than today, and also is more focused on prevention and promotion than our healthcare system is today. So to meet these challenges, we have set up a bold and ambitious goal for Swedish healthcare, where we aim to be the world leader in utilizing the potential in technology in order to support equal health and welfare. And we are happy to invite other countries in this race. So if you're up for the competition, you are more than welcome, of course, to join in. I would also like to say that this is a joint initiative from my organization and the Swedish government in order to further catalyze innovation and transformation of healthcare. It includes a vision, a strategy, and an action plan on national level to support regions and municipalities and private care providers. And I'm not going into details on that, but I would like to underline that this is a top priority both in our central government and within the leadership in the 21 regions and 290 municipalities. This is just to give you some examples of where we stand today in the digital health space in Sweden. I would like to argue that we have a fairly good starting point. We hold a national digital infrastructure that connects our 21 regions, our 290 municipalities, and our thousands and thousands of private healthcare providers. On that service platform, we have several national services for citizens and professionals. For example, as a citizen, you can view your patient records online, and as a professional, as a doctor, for example, you can view a national patient overview that gives you the data and the information needed regardless of where in our healthcare system the patient has really been. And during the pandemic, as other countries, of course, we have seen a rapid increase in virtual care and in remote monitoring as well. Good for you guys to know is also that a majority of the regions, I think it's 11 or 12 of the 21, they are also about to get new EMRs, new electronic medical record systems in the coming years. So the big players in Sweden when it comes to the EMRs are a Swedish company called Cambio Healthcare Systems. But we also now have welcomed the American company Cerner into the Swedish market in the EMR side. And last, I would like to underline that we do capitalize a lot in Swedish healthcare from the innovation capacity in the Swedish health tech industry. We have a lot of SMEs creating good values for the regions and municipalities. But even if we have been quite successful in the past digitizing healthcare, we are now in a position where we have to take the next step and really change the way we deliver healthcare supported by technology. And I just would like to underline that this is no more about replacing analog with digital. It's really about reinventing what healthcare is about and leverage power of technology at scale, and also in new ways augmenting the most humanistic aspects of care. So our direction in Sweden is really to move healthcare from bricks and walls of primary care centers or hospitals to the places where people actually live, eat, work, and play, and technology is going to be the enabler for that. This illustration from Sarah, a friend of mine, and also a front runner patient, explained this in a great way, I think. Sarah has Parkinson, and with this picture, with this illustration, with the blue and the one red dot, she shows us that every year to handle her Parkinson, she spends 1 hour with her doctor, but 8,765 hours with taking care of herself. with our old attitude in healthcare, we would have been focusing on that red dot, trying to figure out how we could improve care and patients' experience during that 1 hour doctor's visits. But now we're starting to understand that our focus should be about how we as a healthcare system could be present in Sarah's everyday life and support her to stay healthy and live the life the way she wants. And I truly think this is somewhat of a mind shift where we need to recognize that healthcare is not only about surviving, it's also about thriving. And with the powerful technology that now is available, we have the possibilities not to discharge patients with a bag of pills, but also with digital solutions and sensors that enables continuous monitoring and could be combined with decision support both for patients and professionals. If we flip the way we meet the needs of people with chronic diseases, we also change focus from taking care of patients that visits us to support people to stay in a circle of well-being in their everyday life. So this is kind of our main direction in Sweden at the moment. This combines also healthcare system and the social care within the municipalities. We are trying to connect those different areas together in this movement. We still have a long journey ahead of us, but partly based on what has already taken place in other sectors and what is actually happening in healthcare right now, I think we can point out some of our directions in Sweden. We know that the only sustainable way forward is to transform our rather reactive healthcare system to a more proactive health promotion approach. We are also seeing that it's going to be self-service for everyone who wants it. It's really a matter of independency. As a citizen in Sweden, you should be able to have at least as good control of your health as you do have of your private economy. It's definitely about independency and safety. We're also seeing that it's not either digital or physical. It's definitely a blend of virtual and physical care. During the pandemic, we all have seen how technology is making healthcare location agnostic. And when we truly understand that healthcare is no longer places that we go to, it's services that are delivered on the places that they need to be delivered in the way that our citizens want it. And of course, we have to utilize the potential of automation and AI. I would also like to point out that our design principles in Sweden is to kind of move from our traditional inside-out perspective to an outside-in perspective, where we design the offers of healthcare based on citizens' motivations and preferences as our design principles, rather than our traditional design principles that has been demography or diagonals. So that's also some of our key issues at the moment. And we also need to partner up with the industry a lot more. The future of healthcare is going to build on the shoulders of the strongest of partnerships, and we need to find better ways to collaborate in this journey ahead. And finally, I would just like to touch upon our challenges and stress the fact that technology challenge every aspect, every part, every dimension of healthcare. It's in my opinion, e-health or digital health, it's not about IT, it's about change of behavior and change of way of working supported by technology. And if you do buy in on that kind of definition, you understand that we need to reevaluate how we lead and govern, how our incentive and reimbursement models are designed, our culture and values, the competences we hold, and how we provide our working staff with the new skill sets required to work in the healthcare of tomorrow that are more digital than today. But it's also about legislation and regulation how we can move from today's regulatory silos with an organizational perspective to a legal framework that puts the individual citizen and his or her needs in the center. And with that said, I just would like to finish by pointing out that the biggest transformation is not about technology. The biggest transformation is not digital, it's analog. It's about you and me and how we change our behavior regardless of where in our healthcare system we feel we belong. I think that was actually, Johan, my last slide. So thank you all for your patience, and I hope you have got at least a broad overview of what is driving us in Sweden and where we are heading at the moment.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Really, really good presentation and really insightful overview of how the Swedish healthcare system works. Any questions for Patrick, please feel free to write them in the chat and we'll pick them up. I'm thinking I can start with one question that I had, and that I think a lot of the digital companies that we have on this call have as well. So oftentimes, as you mentioned, the needs of the healthcare system in Sweden may not be that unique to Sweden. They may be more universal to all developed countries' healthcare system. But then the difficulty is oftentimes getting, if you have a solution to this problem, getting that solution into the system, partially due to like system complexity, also because of what you were saying on the last slide, that it challenges potentially ways of working and so forth. So just your thoughts on how British companies interested in expanding to Sweden could go about that. So who should they reach out to? What do you feel they need to show to be interesting for the Swedish system and to be able to support it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Johan. And I think the Swedish healthcare system, as the UK one, is a complex system. And I think the most important lesson is to get to know that system before you're trying to enter that market. What is the philosophy? How do we do business in our healthcare system? I think the hardest part for you is to really identify your customer. Who is your main customer in this? Because you have the regions, you have the municipalities, you have the thousands and thousands of healthcare providers. So you have to get a little bit of knowledge of which type of questions or decisions are made by the regions as kind of the owner of their healthcare system, or which kind of business or decisions is made by healthcare providers, for example, primary care centers or single hospitals and stuff like that. So also good to know the Swedish kind of mentality. There isn't a guy or girl that you can go to that makes the decisions. You have to, in order to get a nice deal with Swedish healthcare providers, you need to have a dialogue with many different stakeholders. You need to have the professionals with you to speak to the doctors, nurses, the users of your solutions. You have to pitch this to the leadership and the different leadership levels, some in some cases on the political level also. So I think that is unfortunately the biggest challenges both for British companies or Swedish SMEs is to enter the market and to get that first deal or first reference case that could really break the ice. So I don't think, I think that one of my really recommendation is to spend some time to understand the system that you are trying to enter. And this is not something you can read about in a report. You have to live it, you have to try, you have to connect to a lot of people and to get a little bit dirt under your nails.
Thank you. We have one question here from Tim Ringrose as well. Quite broad question. Just if you can explain how the social care system works as well, maybe at a sort of very high level, sort of municipality responsibility, but also how integrated it is with healthcare. Yeah. I think that's a lot of work that's going on in the UK, and will be interesting to hear about Sweden as well.
Yeah. So social care in Sweden covers all residents as well as healthcare. It's tax financed. It's the 290 municipalities that are responsible for social care. It covers every different aspects of social care. It's everything from family therapy, abusement, childs that are in danger. If you're poor and not have a job, and you're homeless or need money or whatever support you need. So it covers really every aspect of life, and it's kind of the fundament in the Swedish welfare system. No one should fall between the chairs there. Social care and healthcare is more and more integrated with another. That's the kind of movement that I was explaining for you, trying to move healthcare from the bricks and walls of hospitals. In that movement, there are one big dimension is to integrate social care and healthcare even more than we've done traditionally. As a citizen in Sweden, you don't give a damn if it's something that we call social care or healthcare, or if it is a region that provides it, or a municipality or a healthcare provider. I think as a citizen, you think you have a need, and you really expect that the welfare system should meet that need in a sustainable and connected way. So, and now with the new technology, we have better possibilities than ever to really connect social care and healthcare with another. And we could be, by using data, we could be more data driven and work more with health and social prevention and promotion than before. So we have on my level, we have a lot of collaboration in the leadership now, in the leadership between the regions and the municipalities to further get their organizations to integrate with one another.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm thinking final question. I think we have another minute before we're handing over to Iris. Just a question here from Darren. Great to see the focus on patients outside the formal care setting. The largest support outside, if delivered, is delivered by unpaid family carers. So what digital support does Sweden provide for unpaid family carers? And I think that there are possibly two questions really in that. The first, if that is the case in Sweden as well, sort of unpaid family carers, to what extent that is the case, and then second, how the digital support aspect. And I think if we could do that within 1 minute, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue in Sweden as well. I mean, in our traditional inside-out perspective, we don't really identify these unpaid family carers, but in our more modern view, if you take the citizens' perspective, you see that the citizens' ecosystem is not about healthcare providers, it's about its friends and family and everything. In this movement, trying to move healthcare and social care closer to our citizens and make our business more person-centered, we have some great examples how we connect unpaid family carers with the healthcare system and with the citizens, kind to create a broader ecosystem and more holistic view of what affects people's health and well-being. Definitely, but it is still, I would say, a rather new issue. We don't have all the structures, we don't have all the culture to really embrace the fact that we need to integrate these family carers as well as the traditional professionals within the healthcare system.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. I believe, unfortunately, we won't have time for any more questions for Patrick. Perhaps easier to just reach out to Esquire directly if you have any questions. I'm don't know if that's the best way, Patrick, to for additional questions.
Yeah, and I think if you, Johan, could maybe be our middleman there, and
Absolutely.
I'll see what I can do. Definitely.
Absolutely. Great.
Thanks for having me today.
Thank you very much, Patrick. A really, really insightful presentation. And with that, we'll hand over to Iris from Business Region Göteborg, who will speak a bit more about investing in Sweden.
Thank you very much. Let me see. Just be patient with me. I will share my presentation. Just a minute. I was trying to get it. Just a minute. Let's see. I was trying to get it live because I really wanted you to be able to move back and forward in the presentation in case you have any questions and would like, as you know, to go back. But just allow me 1 minute for that. In the meantime, I will shortly explain you what I do here. So I am working for Business Region Gothenburg, which is a company owned by the city, by the municipality of Gothenburg, but we are also working for the 13 municipalities of the Gothenburg region. Okay, so we are a company fully owned by the city. And I am specifically working with what we call foreign direct investments. Let me see. Now you see it, right? Very good. So I am working with what we call foreign direct investment. So my work actually is to connect foreign companies to business investments and establishments opportunities in the region, and specifically in West Sweden. Today I am going to present I will have focus on Sweden, but I will on some slides have cases from West Sweden because I think it's easier for you to understand, because as Patrick mentioned, the provision and the funding of care, it's, you know, on every county council. So just to have you closer. Let me see. So before I start, I just want to say, usually the companies that approach us, they are interested in Sweden, but they also see Sweden as an entry point for entering the Nordics. Okay, and it's not only because we are very closely geographically, for instance, from Gothenburg, where I am located, to Oslo, it takes like 2.5 hours by car. To Copenhagen in Denmark, more or less the same, and to Stockholm in Sweden, it might be, you know, 4.5, 5 hours by car. So the Nordics actually are very close to each other, and we have a common history, background, and welfare model. We don't speak the same language. I am myself from Cuba, so I don't understand Danish, but I could say that the Swedish people understand very well the Norwegian and the Danish people, okay? So we don't have exactly the same, so the structure of the healthcare system in the Nordic countries is not organized exactly the same, but you could say that we have plenty of similarities, okay? So if we now, I will just mention, I will try to be very practical. We are in touch with many companies that want to enter the Swedish market, and just as Patrick say, I recommend as a first step to actually get to know the market, identify key people on the market, and more of all, get to understand the needs for the specific product that you are offering. Okay, and a way of doing it in a, I would say, easy way could be to start with somebody a co-development project and R&D collaboration to perform some clinical validation, to so clinical trials. There is funding sometimes both from before from EU, but still I hope UK can have access to some of the existing R&D funding within EU, but there are also some funding from the Nordic innovation from Sweden, and I can hope you also have some support in the UK for this kind of export or validation abroad activity. So that's one way. The other one is, of course, to visit Sweden. We have a lot of fairs that have focused on life sciences, healthcare, so digital health. Come here, actually talk to the people from the hospital, from the municipalities. It's a first step before you actually get to identify the key people within the hospital. And I am saying this because, as Patrick mentioned, there are 21 regions in Sweden, and there are 290 municipalities, so it's very difficult to find the right person. But start slow, and then you will get it. And as I said, join delegations, get support from the economic department at your embassy, contacts organizations like Business Sweden or like us that are really here, and then we will be happy to connect you or to provide any other information. The second step, when you already know more or less what you want to do, or when you have already understood the way in which your product can be a good match for the market, it's to decide how do you want to enter, whether you want to have a physical present here, find an agent, acquire a Swedish company, or do any other kind of commercial partnership. That's something that I will likely explain later on, but I think you will see that there is a difference between, I think that depending on the product that you are offering, you might find that some of these ways might be better or not. So it depends very much of the target group, but also of the product that you are offering. For instance, in Sweden, the public sector is mostly public. So some of the companies that we know that have wins, that have won tenders in Sweden, they tend to have a physical presence here of obvious reason. It's very difficult if you are delivering a service to the public sector here, which is very big, to not have somebody here, okay? Just to give you an example, in West Sweden, we have one of the largest hospitals, not only in Sweden, but in Northern Europe. The name is Sahlgrenska University Hospital. They have about 16,000 employees and 2,700 beds. It's actually one of the largest emergency care units in the Nordics. It's a huge hospital, and it is associated to the Faculty of Biology of the Gothenburg University. But in West Sweden, we have 17 hospitals, okay? And we have 49 municipalities. And as Patrick mentioned before, the hospitals and the county councils are mainly in charge of the provision of care and funding. But when we talk about elderly care or the care of the disabled, then you have to talk to the municipalities. Okay, so specialized care, primary care is county council, and home service, home care, elderly care is municipalities. Okay, and unfortunately, you might need to approach every one of them. In some cases, we have joint tender for certain systems, but it depends very much of the product that you are offering and the budget that they have. And there is also a threshold for whether you need tender or not. And this is following the EU rules. So to facilitate, let me see if to facilitate for the companies to get in touch with the public system here, because it's, as I said, it is public and we have to follow some rules. We have, for instance, in West Sweden, created some kind of departments that are I would say like a first point of contact into the hospital. So companies are not really allowed to enter the company, the hospital, and start talking to doctors. You actually, if you are interested in validating, for instance, you see here, one is called Gothia Forum. If a company wants to perform a clinical trial in West Sweden with at any of the 17 hospitals, you contact Gothia Forum and they will send an email to every relevant hospital, and then they will figure out whether there is any physician interested in actually performing the clinical trial with you. So they will support you with this, but then other things also related to health, economics, etc. Another example is Innovation Platform. This is also a department of the county council. It is located in the hospital, and they have mainly focused on validation studies, where you really when you really want to know how your product or service can be, inserted, implemented within the workflow of the hospital. So it doesn't matter whether there is a need or not for the specific product. Usually we want to know how it actually suits, in the workflow. And OLH Hub is similar to Innovation Platform, but it has the focus on municipalities. In this case, 12 municipalities of the 49 that we have in West Sweden have come together and created this initiative called OLH Hub. The idea here is that we will present to the companies and the ecosystem the concrete needs of the municipality. So if you go into the website of OLH Hub, you will see that we will be posting concrete examples of what we need. The idea is not that we are going to buy it without a tender, but we will offer the company that have a matching solution the opportunity to actually say, okay, guys, we have this, let's test it, let's do something together. So it's very much for getting to know the needs. This is just an example of an upcoming fair that we have next year. It's the largest e-health, digital health fair in Scandinavia. I strongly suggest you to come. You don't need to have a booth, but of course you can, but otherwise you can visit it. And I think in some cases it's free of charge, or at the most you will pay 50 euro. So it's really worth to come here. There are usually over 5,000 people, and the people here are the people from the county council, from the government, from the hospitals, actually being there looking to the solutions that are on the market. So I really recommend you to attend. Then it's difficult for a small company, and this is just reality, to win a tender in Sweden. Also if you are not in Sweden, okay? This is a reality. So I really suggest to consider also partnering with what we call system integrators. The market of digital health and this kind of infrastructure is actually 97% dominated by Combo Group, Norrbotten County Council, now Cerner, Tietoevry. They have the market. If you find these guys, if you try to see how your product can be an offering that they can also offer to the hospitals, because they are already there everywhere, okay? I will later on share these slides, but here you see a list. Then the online consultation friends were also mentioned. Don't only think and consider about, selling directly to the public system, but also try to, contact companies like Doctor24, Cree, Dr. Putesi, etc., that are providing online consultation services, because it might be that they might actually be your potential clients. And then, of course, try to Google and visit the website of IT and Telecom Företagen, which is the association of all companies within IT and telecom services, and you will find there a lot of information about companies specifically working with e-health, digital health, and you might be able to find a partner. The healthcare sector in Sweden is, as I said, mainly public, but there is also, of course, a growing number of services being delivered by the private sector. I think it is about 25%, and it varies. I think it's higher in Stockholm, and in Gothenburg, West Sweden, we have about 25%, okay? But it doesn't matter whether it is delivered by the public sector or the private sector, it actually, everything is paid and funded by the taxpayers. I don't know, so this is the situation. Sometimes it is easier for the company to actually approach the private care providers, and you see there the list of the largest one. They are also putting a lot of efforts on digital health solutions. As you see, the market is also dominated by the 10 largest players, which have actually over 35% of the market, and then you have, you know, almost 2,000 that small service provider that have the other 64%. So to contact the private care providers might be an easy way to enter the market, because in many cases you don't need to do a tender. And I'm going, yeah, the other thing is I imagine that many of you are actually selling services to the healthcare, but just for you to know that the private companies, that the medtech companies, the pharma companies are also looking for digital health solutions, and for solutions in which your products could be a good match. One of the companies in Sweden and in West Sweden that is investing a lot in digital health is actually AstraZeneca. For you, for those of you who are interested, just send an email to me. I have received from them the list of the specific things that they are looking for, but of course this is very much related to device, drugs, pharma products, etc. But if any of you have focused on this market, I have received information from them from specifically which kind of products, etc. they are interested in, and the business model is from establishing a company here within AstraZeneca, and you see it in pink. They have something called BioVenture Hub, where there are already today over 30 companies located, actually a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them from the UK. And I think there are 2 more on the way. So either you establish an office, small office within AstraZeneca, or you can just partner with Astra as a consultant, as a service provider, or as an employee if you have something that match what they're looking for. And what when I put there this called HealthWorks, actually mean that they have now a new initiative that actually focus on partnering with digital health company for finding solutions that will specifically target the people at home. Okay, so it's kind of a let us do it together to see how we can deliver services and drugs to people at home. So it's very much about connected health. Very shortly, as you know, if you decide to establish an office in Sweden, Sweden actually have a very competitive corporate tax. As you see there, since January 2021 is 20.6%. Okay, while in the UK, as I said there, I think it's still 19%. Okay, and even though the healthcare and all of this is funded by the county councils, when we talk about corporate taxes, this is just a Swedish. Everybody pays it in Sweden. We don't have any other kind of corporate tax at a local level. Okay. In Sweden, there are also a lot of incentive, you could say, mainly related to companies that are engaged in R&D or that have R&D products and services. So if you are a company and have employees working with R&D, when you are in Sweden, you can get 20% lower rate for employees. And this is actually meaning that in Sweden, when you employ somebody, you pay their salary, and apart from that, you pay a 30% over that actually goes to the government, and that covers everything. That means pension, free healthcare, free education, free university, everything. So the difference with the UK here is that when you pay 30% for that person gets everything from the system free. They don't need to pay any private GP. So for companies engaged in R&D, they can get 20% lower rate on personal costs. If you also have a company here and have foreign employees here, experts, consultants, etc., that person gets a 20% tax relief. And furthermore, if you have a daughter company in Sweden from a UK company, you don't need to pay in Sweden any kind of withholding tax, interest, income, etc. So this is very this is very beneficial for companies that decide to have a daughter company in Sweden. Okay. Let's see, moving on. And I don't need to tell you, I imagine that you know now when the UK is not part of the European Commission, you might not have access to all the funding that is offered in this when we talk about SME growth and innovation. So of course, actually 2 weeks ago, we had a British company that got a large amount of funding from the EIC. And as you know, you can get from 2.5 million grants to 50 million equity. So that's also a thing that you could think about, whether having a presence in an European country is an advantage for getting access to R&D, but also with regard to the taxes that you pay when you export from the UK. For instance, we have an UK company that has set up a company in Sweden, and they export products from the UK to Sweden, and then when they have to export to the different European countries, of course, they don't need to pay any other kind of taxes. Let's see if we move. And this is, I think, my last slide. And here I wanted to say it's we have provided to you a lot of information, and I actually only had focus on 10% of what is going on in West Sweden, but of course, Sweden is very big, so I really encourage you to contact us in Gothenburg or Business Sweden, or your UK representatives in Sweden to actually understand what's the best way to enter and where you can find information about relevant people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iris. I think maybe just mindful of time, the easiest way would be to send you questions directly, possibly. Just one final question before I hand over to our colleagues at DIT to wrap this up. I think we've spoken quite a lot about these sort of steps to take and so forth. Would there be any sort of common pitfalls that you would also be mindful of, given your experience of working with companies entering the Swedish market?
Okay, so I think that one of the things not to do, so some of the companies that I think that you really need to decide whether you want to enter the Swedish market, because it might take some time, but when you really enter and you win a tender, then you sell big, because the public system is kind of big, okay? But you actually need to decide yourself whether you want to put the efforts and the time that is needed. And I sometimes think that the partnership with somebody here is an easy way to really understand whether there is a market for you, and not only focus on the product that you have, but we notice that some of the companies trying to introduce their products here, they don't focus on how we are doing things today and where you really can go in.
I think that's really, really good advice. Thank you. Good. Then I think I'll hand over to our colleagues at DIT to just wrap this up.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Iris and Johan. Iris, I just had one really quick question, actually. Just and I know just pushed for time a little bit, but just on, often in the UK, when companies are looking to work with a particular healthcare provider, because obviously well, not obviously, but the NHS in the UK is not one big system. It's hundreds or thousands of organisations. They'll often sometimes work with a clinician on a kind of informal basis, or offer maybe a service on a pro bono basis on an initial basis. You mentioned about doing the route to talking to clinicians is maybe a little more closed in Sweden. Are there any ways to kind of offer your service, offer a trial essentially of your product in Sweden, but in a less formal way than a clinical trial, I suppose, a kind of test case, I suppose?
Okay, so of course, clinical trials is a way, but if the product is already developed, I suppose companies don't want to pay it again because they will say we have already done it in Germany, in UK, etc. So in those cases, but still you need to consider that you might need to put some efforts in some kind of pre-marketing validation, which in fact is a way of convincing the people that they need it. Because once they open, once they change, and you are in, we are humans. You don't want to change back. So my suggestion is, but to find a doctor, I would say, go to a fair, go to a conference, or meet, usually because we have a university hospital, the people from the academia, they are also performing, they are also sometimes doctors, so they are both. You understand? So you can approach it through the science if you are doing something wow, or by being here and we will open the doors. So it's not the problem to find the person, it's easy. The problem is to make that people change the system for your product.
Thank you very much, Iris. And I think a lot of the UK companies are going to recognise, similar challenges in Sweden as they do in the UK. So just briefly before I maybe sum up some of what we discussed today, I think obviously first it was great to hear from both Patrick and Iris. First, from Patrick on the Swedish healthcare systems, I think we recognise some parallels with the UK. So the fact it's public sector dominated. We in the UK also have a small private insurance market. The bulk of the vast majority of the spending is from the public side, obviously delivered in maybe different ways. Interesting to hear that our primary care model is quite different, I think, from in Sweden and the UK. So I think in the UK we're used to working through the general practitioner model, whereas in Sweden it sounds quite different. I think there's also parallels in that we're all on a journey in terms of digital health. One interesting statistic I think we've seen from the UK, it's been really driven up by COVID, is that half of the adult population, so 28 million people, are registered with an NHS login. So 28 million adults are registered with an NHS login, and that's been pushed up. So that's the NHS app that's been pushed up by COVID, both through the need to have a COVID pass and also test reporting. So there's still a long way to go, obviously, in terms of 28 million. That's only half the adult population, so it's good, but we want to see that increase. And I think there's a lot of parallels there between the UK and Sweden. Also really great to hear as well from Gothenburg. Particularly really interesting to see your slide about your slide that gave an overview of the, I think it was the Gothia Forum, and just an overview of some of the different ways people can enter the market. So that was really interesting. Yeah, your slide on the partnering and systems integration, so really helpful to understand how UK companies can support that, can go on that journey. Just to summarize for all the companies who've joined, thank you so much. I know we're really pushing up against time now. We've all obviously got all of your contact details. If you've got any further questions, just send them over to Johan, Jennifer and myself, and we can get those answered from the colleagues on the line and the partners. Thank you so much for joining. Just one brief last note from me before I hand over briefly to Jennifer. It's just, if you don't already have if you're in England and you don't already have an international trade advisor, do get in contact with us and we can connect you with one. If you're in Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland, we can also help you connect with if you're not already, connect with the local, with the devolved administration there, so the Welsh, Scottish, or Northern Irish governments and their support systems. So that's it from me. Just to hand over really briefly to Jennifer, just to maybe finish off and round up the day and talk about the support from Stockholm.
Yes, thank you. I think we're pushing time a bit now, and we're almost making it in time to finish this meeting. But first of all, big thank you to our two fantastic speakers. I think I myself learned a lot about my own country today and how it works, and I'm sure that all of you listening learned a lot too. I also want to say just a huge thank you to Johan at Business Sweden for pulling this all together. And I think Business Sweden is a great place to look for assistance if you're looking into Sweden in general or Swedish companies too. I think as Alex said, I think if you have any further questions, please contact any of us three, and we can try to take that further and see who can assist you on that. And I think also noting that in the end, us working at the DIT in Business Sweden, we're here to support you. So I think we can be quite flexible in that approach. I'm sure everybody has our contact details, but otherwise I think we can make sure to circulate all of them to take anything further. But otherwise than that, thank you for joining today. I know there's a lot of webinars and tech meetings, so thank you for staying the full hour. I think it was a great meeting, and thank you so much to the speakers again. So hope to speak to you all very, very, very soon and cooperate with some of you.
Thank you very much. I will send my presentations to you, Johan, and then you can just distribute them. Okay.
Perfect.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.